Actually, the alternator doesn't have any sensors on it, so it's not likely that you will see a special error code or trouble code that tells you that the problem is with the alternator. But when the alternator malfunctions, what happens? The voltage goes up or down in your car, and when the electronic control units and sensors and some electric equipment don't get the needed voltage, it's very likely you will have a bunch of codes in your car, and this bunch of codes can tell you that the problem is with the power, and you will need to check the battery and the alternator. Actually, I have a big article about this problem and the codes that can tell you about the alternator issues. The article is linked in the description and you may just read it. But in short, the several codes that can tell you about the problems with the alternator are as follows. P0562, this is the first code that tells you about the problem with the voltage level, so the drop in the voltage in the system. And when the car tells you about the drop in the voltage, it's quite obvious you will need to check the alternator and probably the battery. Then there is a code P02503, and this code tells you about the charging system problem, so the battery isn't charging. And when the car tells you that the battery isn't charging, it's pretty obvious that you will need to check the alternator and the connections and the wires of the charging system. Then one more code that sometimes can tell you about a voltage problem is P0613. This is the issue with the transmission control unit, and very often this issue is caused by drop in voltage in the system, and the electronic control unit just can't do its work. And also the code P0600 tells you about the problem with the ECU. So the ECU can't work, ECU has some problems, and it's not that often, but sometimes it can also be because of the alternator, because alternator doesn't give the proper voltage. And one of the first codes to pop up is P0600 to tell you about this ECU issue. And it shouldn't be ignored in any way. And actually, random codes can tell you about the voltage problems when the voltage drops significantly in your car and the battery can't support the level of voltage because it's low. A lot of codes can be registered in the ECU because injectors will not work correctly, fuel pump will not work correctly, and ignition will not work. A lot of system will not work because of the drop in voltage. And sometimes it's very difficult to understand. You will start repairing one thing, another thing, and actually when you see a lot of codes, random codes, the first thing to check is the battery and the alternator. And then if the battery and the alternator are okay, you can keep on checking the actual problem that the code tells you about.